So money used to be like one of the biggest stressors in my life. And that was because of these three bad habits that I used to have. And they brought me so much anxiety, so much fear, so much stress, just so much misery. And I'm going to share what they are with you, why they impacted me, and like what I did to overcome them. And honestly, now with money, it brings me so much peace, so much joy. Not perfect by any stretch of imagination, but let me show you how I've made some progress, and maybe it's going to help you make progress too. Hey, welcome to my channel, The Little Nudge. My name is Derek, and for the last 3 decades, I've been helping people explore faith and deepen their faith and just relate it to their ordinary everyday life. And in these videos, I'm just giving you some nudges and tools to help you live a deeper and a more meaningful life. And so one of the things that I used to think about money is that if I just had some more, that would get rid of my stress, my anxiety, my insecurity, and my unhappiness. And then I discovered actually it's not about how much I have, but it's actually how I handle it. That if I don't handle money, if I have a series of bad habits, then actually money tends to start handling me. And whether I have stress or not, whether I have peace or freedom or anxiety, is less about how much I have and more about how I handle it. So let me confess 3 of the bad habits that I used to have and still have a little bit, but really affected my life. And the first one comes from a very ancient proverb. In Proverbs 22, verse 3, it says this. It says, "The wise see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and suffer the consequences." The wise see danger and take refuge. The wise see what's coming and they take action. The simple just keep going and they suffer the consequences. Now, when I got my first car, it was a no-end series of stress and anxiety. Whenever I had to take it to the garage, then I'd be freaking out about how much the repairs would be. If it had an MOT, which is in the UK, that you have to pass in order to keep it on the road, and often that's got your costs in order for it to pass, it would just create me a lot of stress, and I'd get the call from the garage. I'd be nervous all day. And then I discovered this proverb that actually the wise see danger and they take refuge, they do something about it. And it's like, if you buy a car, do you think that at some point it'll need new tires? Do you think at some point the spark plugs need replacing? Do you think at some point the brakes would need repairing? And it's like, yes, if you buy a car, you invite a load of expenses into your life. So when it goes to the garage, it needs some repairs. You don't know how much the repairs are going to be, but you know over the next few years, it'll need some tires, it'll need this, it'll need that. And what the wise do is they look ahead and think, oh, that's going to come. And so they put money aside, they prepare for it. Whereas the simple, what I used to do is just keep going and like hope for the best. And then you get a surprise of how much it was. And then you'd be scrambling around for how much you can cover for it. And it was just this cycle of stress and anxiety. If you have a house, if you own your house and you have lots of electrical goods in it, and then you get a shock when something needs repaired or something breaks, and it's like, oh my word, where am I going to get the money to replace that? And it creates a stress and anxiety into our lives. But the wise see danger and take refuge. And so let's imagine you've got 5 large electrical items in your house. Right, I'm going to keep the math simple here for me. You've got like a TV, maybe a fridge, a cooker, or whatever it is. You've got 5 items. And let's imagine that on average, those items last 5 years each. All right. Then what that means is, on average, every year, one of those items needs replacing. Or imagine they need repairing every 5 years, whatever it might be. It means every year you're going to need to replace one. So what the wise do is they get all the items in the house and think, well, these are not going to last forever. At some point, they're going to go. So what the wise do is say, well, if it's on average 1 a year, so that means I need to save £500, or that means I need £30 a month putting into my fund for my car or for my electric appliances. The wise see danger, but what the simple do is they just keep going and they suffer the consequences, and they ring you up, or I ring people up when I was simple and say, oh no, I'm really stressed. You know, my fridge is broken and where am I going to get the money from? And I'm going to have to do this, and I'm juggling around, where it's like, yeah, you didn't think it was going to last forever. Did you not see that someday this would be coming? Or take this one, Christmas. Now, this is a really easy one. With white goods and with your car, you don't quite know when stuff's going to happen. But Christmas is really easy because Christmas comes every year. And it comes at the same time. every year. So like wise see it's coming and they know how much it's going to cost, and they don't arrive at Christmas and then get all stressed out and put it in a credit card and then go into January feeling really depressed because they can't cover it and they don't know where the money's going to come from. Actually, the wise think it's going to cost this much, and there's 12 months until Christmas. So the monthly amount I'm going to put aside, I'm going to put into the Christmas account. And this is not just like a practical money management thing. This is actually about our emotional state. Because can you imagine when Christmas comes and there's no stress because it costs you £500 Christmas and you got £500 in the pot, or your cooker breaks and then you got £500 in your cooker account, or there's a car problem and you've got your tyre fund and you just go buy it and you just say it's no stress. There's no anxiety, there's no fear because I'm wise and I see danger and I do something about it. And so the bad habit I used to have is I didn't save for the future. I didn't save for things that were going to happen. But as soon as you do, actually, the stress goes, right? And you just feel this sense of peace. Can you imagine just something going wrong and you just paying for it out of the account that you've already set up for it? And so I want to encourage you to do is to kind of look ahead and see what expenses are likely to hit you in the next 6 months, in the next year, in the next 5 years, and work out how much you need, divide it by 12 for a monthly amount, and put that into a separate pot or a number of pots if you need it, and just channel it away, a small amount every month. And that will bring you so much peace. Now, the second bad habit that I used to have, in fact, to reveal this one, I suggest go and speak to the oldest person that you can find. Right? Don't tell them that you're speaking to them because they're the oldest person you can find, but go and find someone really, really old. And I say to them this, that say that like, so when you were grown up, ask them this, say, and you didn't have money for something that you really wanted, what did you do? And they will say the most oddest thing. Honestly, you need to ask them because you won't believe this, that in the olden days, they used to, like, if you wanted something and you didn't have the money for it, then it was, I mean, this is crazy. What they used to do is not buy it. If you wanted something but you didn't have the money, they used to not buy it. I know, absolutely bonkers, absolutely crazy. And so bad habit number 2 is the I deserve it spending spree, where we spend stuff on ourselves. We spend stuff that we want, and it's a real struggle around self-control. I used to get paid at the beginning of the month and have money, and then my month would last longer than my money. Do you know what I mean? That I would try and budget it out, but I always run out of money before I ran out of month because my ability to spend was greater than my ability to not spend, as it were. There's another proverb that really applies to this, and it's Proverbs 25, verse 28. And it says this: a person without self-control is like a city with broken walls. A person without self-control is like a city with broken walls. So certainly in my culture, we don't have cities protected by walls anymore, but it's kind of saying that you've got no protection. So in my context, it's like having a house and there's no windows in the window frame and the door is just an empty frame and there's no door there. So at any point, day or night, people could come in, and you got like your TV in your front room and maybe your valuables in your drawer or whatever it might be, and you go to work and it's like, they're just so vulnerable. Anybody at any point can walk in and take whatever they want. If you're someone without self-control, then that just means at any point, at any time, people can just come in and take your peace and take your joy and just rob it of you. Any marketer, any advertiser, any desire can just come in and grab it, and you struggle to say no. And this just causes so many problems where we use debt, we use overdraft, we use credit cards for our normal everyday spending. And we kind of tell ourselves, oh, I'll just borrow it from next month, or actually, I'll just cut down next month. And it's like, if you couldn't cut down this month, what makes you think you could cut down next month? If you like this self-control house with no door and no, what imagines that next month you're going to be able to border up against the desire, border up against the things that you want and your ability. And it's less about having more money and more around that ability to have self-control, to control our desires. And really one of the best ways I've found for this is that, so I used to buy magazines that used to have different products if I had a hobby or interest. And what I found is when I bought magazines for it, they would do reviews of all the latest things, the latest gadgets, and they would talk about that. And I'd be quite happy with my stuff until I read the magazine about the latest stuff. And then I'd find my desires just gone through the roof, and I was no longer satisfied with the current stuff, and I wanted more. And so one of the ways to strengthen our self-control is reduce what we're aware of, that we scroll less, we walk around the shops less. Maybe there's certain TV programs that we want to watch less of because it stimulates our desire for travel or for clothes or for gadgets or for food or whatever it might be, that we can cut it off at the source. And the second thing is to redefine what normal is for you. You can get to decide what is normal for you. Yeah. And there's a great quote in Charles Dickens' novel, David Copperfield. And I've updated the language, but this is essentially what he says, David Copperfield, in this novel. And this is probably one of the most profound money things I've ever heard. And it's this: income £20, spending £21, result misery. Income £20, spending £19, result happiness. That we fall into the myth thinking happiness comes when we get more stuff and we spend it, that we think that brings us joy. But the greatest joy we can have is that we get to the end of the month and we've got a little bit of spare, that actually the stress and the anxiety is gone from our life because we haven't got that worry. Whenever you get into credit card debt or you spend more than you want in order to get that thing or to go out for a meal or whatever it might be, that gives you that much joy. But if you've got that debt that carries on and just niggles at the back of your mind, and you niggle because you're stressed and you don't know how to pay for things and you've got to move things around, the amount of stress and lack of freedom and insecurity, maybe relationship problems and the squabbles with your spouse or your kids or whoever, that is through the roof. And your happiness will go through the roof if you just spend less than you have. So if you're finding this helpful, could you do me a massive favor and subscribe to the channel and like it and give a comment? It really encourages me and helps me spread the word of the channel and what I'm trying to do for people. Okay, so we covered bad habit number 1, which is not saving for the future. Bad habit number 2, which is spending more than we have. And now we're on to the last one, bad habit number 3 that wrecked my life. And this one's a bit counterintuitive, but they've done research about money and happiness and what brings people joy. And this experiment has been repeated loads of times in lots of different countries and situations. But essentially what they do is they get some research participants who don't know what the experiment is about. And they're split into 2 halves and they're given a card, and there's 2 different types of cards. And all of them have got money in the envelope. And one type of card said, you've got an hour to take this money, to treat yourself, report back here in an hour just to tell us what you bought and why you bought it. And the other half get a card which says, this money, I want you to go and spend it on a gift for someone else. It could be a friend or a stranger. You get to choose. Come back in an hour and report. And they do this repeatedly, and then they have conversations to assess how people feel and their happiness and their thought processes. And every single time the results are crystal clear, that those who spend their money on other people get a bigger happiness boost than those who spend it on themselves. Those who use their money on other people get a big happiness boost than those who spend it on themselves. Jesus himself says it's better to give than receive. If you receive and you buy something for yourself, you get a little boost of happiness, a boost of joy. If you spend it on somebody else, then the boost and the joy is much, much greater. And so the bad habit number 3 is to imagine that there's a link between spending on myself and bringing joy and pleasure to myself, when actually you get a bigger bang for your buck. If you had £10 in your hand now and you wanted to get the maximum joy out of that, the maximum pleasure, the maximum boost to your mood, then that would come from giving that to someone else, buying it for somebody else, a stranger, a friend, it doesn't really matter. But that's the strongest proven link. And you could even test it yourself. And so obviously we need to buy food for ourselves, we need to buy stuff for ourselves, and that's not really the point here, but it's to make sure that there's a proportion of our money that we give away to other people in a mindful way. We give it to causes that we support, we give it to people that we support, or we just have a portion of money that when there's an opportunity, we just bless someone, we just buy them something, we just treat them, we see someone in need and we drop off a little gift, or we find issues in society that matter and we get educated on it, we made it sure a proportion of ours. And obviously that changes the world when they're able to do that. But if you want it to be like totally selfish about it and about how do I get maximum happiness and joy, how to get rid of the misery in my life, then that is a really, really simple way. And so it takes a bit of faith to believe that, because even I'm saying this, if you would then take a proportion of money, you'll feel resistant and you'll feel, well, I'm going to have less. I'll have less happiness and I'll have less security and I'll have less peace. And you almost need to trust these words of Jesus. You've got to trust the research. You've got to trust the principle and build that into your life if you want to get a deeper sense of happiness. And then, but it's not just our habits, but it can be like the beliefs in our mind. And I used to have these two beliefs that just totally wrecked my life until I got them sorted. And if you're really interested in money, then I should recommend that you watch this video next, where I tell you more of my story and these two false beliefs that I had, mindsets that really got me trapped with money, and my experiences of how I got free from it. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope it's been helpful, and I'll see you again soon.